Good morning. Welcome to another episode of Vuka Nazo here on the Big Daddy Liberty Show. My name is Sihle Ngobese, aka Big Daddy Liberty. This is the Monday edition of Vuka Nazo, where we break down and analyze some of the top headlines that you should be paying attention to. If you want to get in touch with us here on the show, remember, find us on our website. That's at www.bigdaddyliberty.com. There, of course, you can also see, if you scroll down to the very bottom of the page, how you can support the show financially with as little as 100 to 150 Rand a month is more than enough to help me get this show on the roll. With that being said, how about we get on the roll and get straight into the headlines. Right, we begin here in Gauteng, of course in Pennyville, which is where the head office of the PUTCO bus service is. PUTCO, of course, being the rather extensive bus service that operates in Gauteng, experiencing a illegal and wildcat strike at the moment, as angry bus drivers have amassed and effectively, on the one hand, downed tools or walked out of buses. I don't know how to frame that appropriately, but more concerningly, have embarked on a rather violent protest action and strike action, even at times seemingly holding their own fellow colleagues and management hostage to an extent. The write-up, of course, is in the EWN. At the heart of it are workers who are demanding a 6% increase in their wages. And of course, as I said, because of this demand, have downed tools illegally. Now, the write-up, as I said, had this to say: the bus drivers said they were not backing down from their unprotected strike at the bus company's Pennyville offices. PUTCO suspended the bus service, of course, after drivers refused to show up for work. That was, of course, in the previous week. And about 1,000 employees are expected to lose their jobs after they were given an ultimatum to return to work last week or face disciplinary action. However, workers said, with or without a job, they, quote, wanted their money. And of course, as of Wednesday last week, burning tires had blocked the facilities, and of course had even barred at one stage the exit of the management at the head offices, end of quote. Now, as I said, this is a very volatile situation which requires cooler and calmer heads. However, this is the broader analysis around this. You'll never find cooler or calmer heads, given the kind and type of unions we have in this country, the most unions at least, who are immersed in a ideology that pits workers as being in a confrontation or a conflict with their employers. They don't see the value of a participatory and indeed collaborative approach, but really they see workers as being on one side and employers on the other, an almost adversarial type relationship, which serves no one except union bosses who get richer off of the fees of the workers that they fund, and of course not only richer, more powerful politically, as those same unions often are in bed with politicians in this country. Where am I going with this analysis? Well, I'm going exactly here. Often you see how useless that type of unionism is in incidents like these, where frustrated workers often feel like, because they're so poorly represented by unions officially, that they have to go on wildcat or really illegal strikes. Those are strikes that are not determined by the parameters set by the Labour Relations Act. And when they do that, they then pit themselves up against confrontation with the police, of course, and you see such violent scenes, as was the case outside the Pennyville offices. And I want to play a quick clip in that regard. Again, this is at the heart of my concern is really this. As the economy becomes worse and worse, and politicians in this country effectively double down on bad policies that make the economy worse, you will have more pressure being placed on employees, on workers, And by extension, you'll have a greater likelihood of more protests and wildcat strikes like these. And until someone can actually begin to show the requisite leadership required in the workplace to say, actually, instead of workers and employers having an adversarial relationship, maybe have a rather more collaborative and indeed partnership type relationship that avoids these sort of conflicts, because I'll tell you now, they will serve nobody as we head into tough economic headwinds. All right, in other news, and indeed a series of stories which are tracking a larger issue, one which we'll keep an eye on, I've long held that the breakdown of law and order and indeed the rule of law in South Africa has implications which play themselves out in various sectors of our society. Schools, and indeed with school children, are one such microcosm where most people are beginning to notice now that what we see as a decay in the rule of law and increasing criminality and a moral decay in the broader sense of who we are at the moment as South Africans is playing itself out at the school level. And indeed, this was very evident, pardon me, as teachers who belong to the National Teachers Union, or NATU, who held a 3-day conference, discussed this particular issue and raised the spectre of the incidences of violence and chaos in their particular case, KZN schools, but really schools across the country. And indeed, there have been viral videos that exemplify just how dangerous it is becoming to be a teacher and indeed a fellow school pupil at schools at the moment. Now, the particular conference itself was a catalyst for me really paying attention to this story, where some of the topics discussed, as I mentioned, were on the issue of safety and the climate of safety at the school. The particular piece was in The Independent, which wrote the story up as following. Safety was, of course, one of the topics discussed on the first day of the conference, where NATU acting president, that's a Sibusiso Malinga, issued a stern warning to the government calling for improved safety measures at schools. He's quoted as saying, "If nothing gets done, there will come a time when we will decide to boycott classes over safety issues, and that time is approaching fast," Malinga said. And by the way, Umalinga is not wrong. Let me take you to some of the file footage I pulled from social media that shows you exactly what he's talking about. Here's a school in Alexandra that's outside near Sandton in Johannesburg, where after the school kids were barred by the principal for celebrating the first day of spring, this is what the school pupils decided to do. And of course, that's not the only incident. Take this video, for example, where again, the issue always stems around the conflict between learners and a teaching staff who are trying to enforce discipline. Here's an incident that happened at Northbury Park Secondary School. This is, I think, in Northdale, Pietermaritzburg, where after a principal confiscated a cell phone that a particular grade 10 learner was using. Oh no, that grade 10 learner decided, well, I think I'll burn the principal's car in retaliation. Have a look at this. And again, it gets even worse because, as I said, the very same criminality we see being as pervasive, as dominating our society, where we as the law-abiding, faith, flag, family and freedom type South African are cowering away in fear of the criminal elite and the criminal elements in our society, is beginning to play itself out in schools. Take this incident, for example, outside a Phoenix school here in Durban, where what is said to be former pupils of the school, perhaps dropout pupils, now looking to enter a life of crime as gangsters, decided, well, how about we go back to our former school and hijack vehicles there. Indeed, two teens who are believed to be former pupils of the Phoenix school approached a motorist outside the school last week armed with a knife and hijacked that particular vehicle. Of course, police and a local security company, RUSA, responded. That's the reaction unit of South Africa, responded to this incident, recovering this vehicle, and indeed an arrest was made. This piece by also The Independent, tracking this issue, wrote this up as follows. Now, according to the suspect in custody, they intended to join a gang in Amaoti, that's just outside on the north of Durban. And part of the initiation process was to hijack a vehicle. They were expected to deliver the stolen or hijacked VW Polo to a taxi owner. This is, of course, according to the spokesperson of RUSA, one Mr. Balram. Balram said the teenager is currently being detained at Phoenix SAPS. End of quote. Now, I raise this issue because for me, as I said, we're beginning to see the impact of living in a violent and criminal society like South Africa play itself out in spaces, social spaces, public spaces, in institutions of society that should be protected from this kind of criminality, that should be immune to this kind of criminality. But reality, unfortunately, doesn't operate according to what we want and wish. Reality is what it is. And it's for that reason that we're beginning to see the criminality, the law, the breakdown of law and order filter into schools, filter into spaces where your and my children are effectively, we want them to be safe. The question now becomes, what do we do about this? How do we address this? And this is something I can't discuss in a short format show like this one, but it's something on this show we'll be doing a special, almost investigative series on, as we unpack the chaos and disorder at our schools. What's the extent of it? What does it look like? We'll talk to teachers, we'll talk to pupils, and we'll talk to hopefully education officials who will give us a sense of what they're doing to address and stem this violence and chaos in our schools. It's a massive issue and one which we'll be paying attention to here on the BDL show. All right, folks, that's all I have for you on this, the Monday edition of Vuka Nazo. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I hope you enjoyed it. Please do me a favor, share this show. I'm definitely noticing that there is a little bit of throttling and maybe shadow banning that I'm experiencing on Facebook in particular. So do me a solid favor. Once you've watched it, just share the show, please. With that being said, visit me on my website. Find me at www.bigdaddyliberty.com. And if you're watching this on YouTube in particular, do me a favor, guys. Subscribe. Become a part of the Big Daddy Liberty family. Subscribe, of course, and hit that bell notification so that every weekday from 7 a.m. you'll be notified when Vuka Nazo is on your screen. So that being said, happy Monday, enjoy your day, and I'll see you tomorrow on Vuka Nazo.